Hey there, I'm so pumped to tell you about an amazing new community I've launched called Grief to Growth Circle Community. It's a space for people who are grieving to come together to support each other, and for people who want to know who we are, why we're here, and where we're going to have those conversations, all the things we talk about on the podcast. So I invite you to join me at grieftogrowth.com/community to become part of this compassionate crew. The best part, it's 100% free. And you have access to me in addition to everybody else in the community. In fact, the podcast will be there so you can talk about the things we talk about in the podcast right there in the community. There's also some premium content if you want to go deeper in the work I'm doing, but mostly it's about building relationships and community and about sharing resources and supporting each other. So come on over and check it out. It's grieftogrowth.com/community. I'll see you inside. Close your eyes and imagine. What if the things in life that cause us the greatest pain, the things that bring us grief, are challenges? Challenges designed to help us grow, to ultimately become what we were always meant to be. We feel like we've been buried, but what if, like a seed, we've been planted? And having been planted, we grow to become a mighty tree. Now, open your eyes. Open your eyes to this way of viewing life. Come with me as we explore your true, infinite, eternal nature. This is Grief to Growth, and I am your host, Brian Smith. Hey there, this is Brian with Grief to Growth, and welcome. Whether you're joining us for the first time or you're a returning listener, I'm your host. Again, I'm Brian Smith, and today we've got a truly remarkable episode for you. Today we've got Colby Rebel. She's an award-winning international celebrity psychic medium. She's a best-selling author, and she's the dynamic host of the Colby Rebel Show podcast. She's known for her clear-cut approach and no-tool style. I'll ask her what no-tool style means. She stands out for her authenticity and her natural gifts. She's not just a psychic medium. She's a beacon of clarity in the fog of uncertainty, especially for those at life's crossroads. She also coaches people. She's celebrated for her precision, and she's been honored with the title of the best psychic of Los Angeles in 2022. And she's not only captivated Hollywood's elite with her guidance, but also she's touched lives across the globe through her practical and grounded spiritual conversations. So today we're going to dive into grief and how to navigate through the healing process. We'll discuss the concept of there is no goodbye and what happens after we transition from this life. Colby will share insights on how to sense the presence of loved ones who have passed and to guide us to establish a connection with them. Additionally, we're going to explore the possibility of accelerating the grieving process and what that entails. So with that, I would like to welcome to Grief to Growth, Colby Rebel.
Oh, hi there, Brian. Thank you so much for having me with you.
I'm excited to have you here and talk to you today about connecting to the other side. That's what we talk about here. We talk about life and death and what comes after. I even hate to use the word death because I don't think we actually truly die.
No, I would agree with you. I think the only part of death we have is the death of the physical body, but the soul lives on for sure, without a doubt.
Yeah, I'd like to talk to you first about how did you discover your abilities, or how did they come about?
So for me, they were always there. I mean, the first memory we have is when I was 4. That's like the first memory of a visitation. And they happen throughout my entire life. So a lot of times young people, all kids are intuitive. I think all kids are connected. Some people just start to dim it between the ages of 10 and 12. And that just could be maybe something with the parenting or what they're being told or school pressure, society. So they start to kind of suppress it. But I was really lucky that I didn't have that experience. I had that freedom to always keep it with me. I just thought everybody did it. So there's no way I grew up thinking, oh, I'm going to be a medium. I'm going to do this forever. I'm glad I am doing it, but certainly it wasn't what I thought was my purpose until, as we mentioned earlier, right before recording, sometimes spirit has other things in mind for us, for our lives.
Yeah, absolutely. So you said you had like your first visit when you were like 4. What was that about? What happened?
So for me, when I was 4, my grandfather came to me and it was very, very clear. And he just was right by my bedside. And it was literally, I could see him, feel him. It was as if he was as physical as you and I are here in this moment. And he said, just get out of bed and go tell mommy what I said. And I do remember it being around Christmas time. So I get out of bed and I tell my mom, and she just kind of looks at me like quizzically, like, who said that? And I said, well, Grandpa said that. And she's like, well, where's Grandpa? And I said, well, he's in the room, mommy. And I pointed to the bedroom.
Mm-hmm.
And she just kind of had a tear come down. And she's like, okay, well, we'll go back to bed. It's okay. And here later on, I found out he had passed away like a week before that, but they didn't even tell us. They didn't even let us know because I was only 4 and my sister was only 2. So, it was pretty significant for my mom to kind of hear from her father through her 4-year-old daughter. So in that way, it was very evidential for me. And I grew up really believing in spirit. I never ever doubted it. And even as I studied, because you can study to make your gifts stronger, to become more clear, to kind of put things in perspective. I never ever doubted that spirit was with me and that they work through me, and that it's a really beautiful world that they have and that they live in. And it's very, very intertwined with our world.
So this happened when you were 4. Did you tell other people about it? How did your parents react to it? Sounds like your mother was kind of okay with it.
My mom was more scared of it, Brian. I think she was just like, I don't want to know the answer. I don't want to know what's happening.
Okay.
Because there was another time when I was out front and sitting by myself, and she could hear me talking to someone. So she comes to the screen door and says, who are you talking to? And I said, I'm talking, and I said some little girl's name. I'm talking to so-and-so, and look at her dress, mommy. Isn't that the prettiest dress? And here, had to have been a little girl in spirit that I was talking to. On numerous occasions, it has happened. One time I was sitting at a restaurant, and the waiter, I was just started telling him about his grandmother. And, now I have the waiter crying. I mean, obviously I wasn't aware that it was emotional or that not everybody could see spirit. So I was freely going about telling everybody who was with them and who was there. But it's always been there. And like I said, I think because my family, they weren't real religious. So I was lucky in that way that there wasn't a suppression due to religion. But there also was like, ooh, if she's talking to ghosts, I don't want to know about it. Like that would be kind of their mindset.
Right. So how about like around schoolmates? Did you tell people you had this ability as you were growing up?
No. But when I came out of the spiritual closet, when I decided like, hey, I'm going to change my course and this is what I'm going to do. My sister was the first person I called. And she said, I knew it. And and so it wasn't a surprise. My best friend also, who had been my best friend since the 8th grade, nobody was surprised. Nobody was like, oh, I can't believe you're doing that. That's so weird. They all were like, oh yeah, you could always tell you were talking to somebody. Your hands would move or your lips would be moving and you're having a full conversation. So, nobody was really surprised at all. But very, very supportive. So again, I think in that way, I'm just very lucky.
So obviously you see spirit, or at least did see spirit objectively. Do you still have that ability?
Yeah. So initially it was definitely seeing spirit with my physical eye. As time progresses and you do this, I think more on a professional level, because you're doing so many sessions, it becomes more mental mediumship. And I'm sure you've heard that. So most of the time it's mental mediumship for me. Every once in a while, I will see a physical spirit, but it's always for a flash. And moreover, what's interesting is when I do connect to spirit with mental mediumship, I'm not seeing them as if I'm looking at them. I'm seeing them as if I am them through their eyes. Like I see what they see. So I find that to be very interesting. So that means I'm blending with the spirit, right? We're just blending, we're sharing. And that really I think is just one of my favorite things to do, because you really feel who that person is. You feel what their personality is like, or what they're seeing, or what they know. Um, and that I think is just so beautiful.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Hey there, I'm testing out a new feature. I'd love to get your feedback on it. It's called Fan Mail, and you can send me a message right from the show notes of the podcast. So look for the link that says send me a text. You can ask a question for a future podcast. You can suggest a guest, or just give me any feedback you want. Just remember, it is one way. I can't text you back, and I will not have your name, your email address, or your phone number unless you include it in the message. Let me know what you think. So when you're, as you said, when you're blending with them, you're kind of feeling what they're feeling, and seeing what they're seeing, and that's more of your experience now, I guess, when you're doing this as a profession, as opposed to when you were younger. So what was the thing that drove you to come out? Did spirit tell
Oh,
you it's time, or?
Brian, I'll tell you. So I was studying to be a CPA, taking the CPA exam. And I was a tax accountant, tax manager for 14 years for a public CPA firm.
Mm-hmm.
And I was taking the CPA exam. So once you start the first part, it has a timer starts, and you have to pass all 4 parts within a time frame. So I was on my last part, but as I'm in that last part, spirit it is so overwhelming, of the constant seeing spirit, hearing them, feeling. There's just this overwhelming, you're not on course, you're not on course. So,
Mm.
and I remember one night just saying, all right, listen, spirit, just give me this exam, and I promise I will serve. Okay. So I take that final part of the exam, and I get the results back, and I failed it by 1 point. And in that moment, all of it went away. The whole timer would have had to restart. And I remember saying, why, spirit? And they said, because you can't negotiate any longer. It's time. And literally that was it. That was the moment that I said, all right, I need to start doing this. And I did my first professional reading the very next day.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's kind of funny. I started studying with Lisa Williams because, again, being the accountant, I was also a bit skeptic. Like, okay, yeah, I may see people. That doesn't mean, I should be doing that for my life's work. And I really wanted to be vetted. I really wanted to be tested. I wanted to be challenged, to make sure, because there are people's lives and people's feelings, and how you work ethically and morally is just so important if you are going to do this work. And I wanted to take it very seriously. So I started with Lisa Williams. By the end of that year, I did have a CPA as a certified psychic advisor. So I kind of thought, well, that was a nice little joke from spirit for sure.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So what are your thoughts on soul planning, or pre-birth planning, or whatever you want to call it? Do you feel like this is something you agreed to before you came in?
No, not really. I believe that you have lessons for sure. So I believe, in spirit, we have lessons, we have soul school there. And then what lessons do I need to learn here? What path do I need to have to understand? So I believe we do have lessons. I do believe we have a purpose, and it's discovering that purpose. But do you only have one purpose? No. I mean, because, I think you could take a few different routes to serve that purpose, to be of service. And, and that's okay too. Like, you don't have to be a medium. You could be a therapist. You could be a police officer. You could be a teacher. Like, those industries, I believe, are also very helping, very healing, very loving, helping work people through things. So, I don't think everything is just so predestined. I don't.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah, that's an interesting perspective, as you said. So but there's kind of like overall lessons, but maybe not a specific path that you have to take.
That's right. Or, people, I think it's so unfortunate that people think, oh, they're going to they totally missed out on their soulmate because they didn't move to Hawaii like the psychic told them they needed to do. And it's like, no,
Right.
no, that's not it. Or that, I don't know if I don't know if I was supposed to necessarily be an accountant before I became a professional medium. I think it certainly has helped me. But if I could go back in time, do I wish I had thought to kind of do this sooner? Yeah, of course. I think it would be great to have started it sooner, but it just wasn't part of it. But maybe that was a lesson I was supposed to learn, or, I'm not sure, but I don't think everything is so planned out the way that some people think it is.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. I think there's kind of a excuse me, I think there's like a blend. There are certain things, as you said, lessons we're supposed to learn, maybe highlights we're supposed to hit, but there's obviously there's free will, there's choice.
Yes.
And I think spirit kind of works around when we're not on our path. But there also seems to be those times when it's like, okay, you're not on your path. You got to get on your path. We're gonna put you on your path.
Oh yeah, I think that I definitely feel that spirit, the universe, it's a perfect example, right? They're going to give you a little leeway. It's the same as the parent who's got the toddler and the toddler's trying to learn how to walk and find balance. Like, the parent's going to give a little bit of space, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if the kid starts running away or running towards stairs, the parent's going to dive in and go, no, that's the wrong direction.
Right.
So, I think the universe watches us. And I also, and I think a lot of people can relate to this, that, you may be doing something and you keep feeling like, maybe I'm supposed to change my job. Maybe this isn't and yet you stay in it, right? You stay in it, and you keep feeling that nudge to change, but your free will is kind of keeping you there. Then all of a sudden, one day you walk in, you're fired, didn't know it. Your landlord told you had to move. Like, everything gets ripped out from under you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is the universe trying to say, hey, you're so off course. Let's get you back on course. Let's kind of get you to figure this out.
Well, it's interesting you chose that example because that's exactly what happened to me.
No.
No, I was working for a company and it was going kind of okay, but I wasn't really happy there, and I was thinking about moving, but I was making pretty decent money, and then one day I literally got fired.
Oh,
and
wow.
Ended up moving to where I am now and making a lot more money, and it was the right thing for me to do. And there was an opportunity that I was considering, but it was too risky. It was 100% commission sales job, and it was in a brand new territory. And I was like, yeah, I can't take that risk.
Yeah.
But once I got fired, it's like, hey, I got nothing to lose.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. So what a great story, though.
It is now. It wasn't at the time.
At the time, it's not, is it? It's very stressful. It's very worrisome. I had, and I believe the universe will test you. How much do you want this?
Mm-hmm.
How much does it mean to you, in a way? And I think that that's important, so that we have gratitude, so that we know why we're doing something. But when I was a tax manager and I was now moving towards the master spiritual teacher program, and it was such an intense program. It's a 9-month program, and the last 3 weeks are done in person. And at the time, it was the person was now in New York, and I was in Los Angeles, so I'd have to go to New York for 3 weeks in person to complete the training. Well, it just so happened that the 3 weeks in training was a tax filing deadline. It was over October 15th, which is the last filing deadline. There's no extensions for an individual after that date. There's no way the boss was going to let me have off there's no way it was going to happen. And I was tormented. How could I go, quit my job and go, and then just really have that leap of faith? But that's what I knew, what I had to do. And that's what I did.
Wow.
Yeah. That was scary, though.
Yeah, that is scary. So I want to talk to you because it's interesting because I know a lot of mediums, and it's an interesting field. There's a whole lot of misperceptions about it,
Yeah.
misconceptions about it, about the way it works, about people being gifted. So one of the things I hear a lot of times from people is like, mediums should not charge money for their services
Yeah.
because they've been given this gift. It's been freely given to them. They should freely give it away. I talked to someone like you who you seem to be you are a natural born medium, but also talk about the training that you've done and the work that you've done to get to where you are.
Yeah, absolutely. And everything needs an exchange of energy. And I think that's really important. So for me, though, I have really studied with some of the world's best teachers, and it is very, very costly to do that. I also have a center. I have a center in Los Angeles. So how would I afford that lease if I wasn't going to charge? And I do services, and so I also, I believe in giving back as well. So it is a little bit, I'll do a spiritual service or my podcast. I'll do free readings on them
Mm-hmm.
just as an opportunity. Like, if you can't be in a position to afford that session, well, listen into the podcast, see if you can come on as a guest. So there is a wonderful way of giving back that we all can give back.
Sure.
But yeah, I absolutely believe that you have to charge. I mean, I have spent years and years dedicated to this career and to this industry, and it has cost a lot of money on my part to train and to learn and to grow and to facilitate and to also be able to put myself out there so that other people can find me to receive a session, to get that message, to get that clarity. So that's why I believe it's definitely important to charge for the services.
Yeah, I'm glad we had the opportunity to have this conversation because I hear this a lot about people and I'll recommend a medium and they'll look at the price and they come back to me and say, how could you dare recommend that person because they charge so much money, and people don't see behind the scenes. They don't get a chance to talk to someone like yourself and say, well, you have overhead, right? And it's a profession.
Oh, I mean, absolutely. It is a profession. It is. And I think for someone, when they look at the cost, look at the training. How are they qualified? What's their expertise? How long have they been doing this? Are there accomplishments, accolades that are representative of their value? And I think that
Mm-hmm.
that's really important to do that because someone, just because someone, if they charge $50, $60 a session, which would be crazy, I don't know. I don't know if I'd go to a hairdresser that's going to charge me very little. I want to be able to keep my hair. I want to have a good trainer. I want to have a good chiropractor.
Yeah. Well, mediumship can also be very healing, but it can
Yes.
also, if someone doesn't know what they're doing, it can be very damaging.
Oh, and this is why I teach, Brian. This is really why, because there has to be integrity and an ethicalness. And I personally really work with my students on delivery, right? How do you deliver? Because when we are receiving from spirit, you're getting it very quickly, or you may get an impression of something. And how you deliver that is really important. In fact, what's so interesting is today, if on my TikTok, I released the video on delivering difficult information and what is needed. What should the medium be doing when there is something difficult to relate to the client? And I think how we say it and how we deliver it is so, so important because it literally, for your client, for them, it may be the last thing that they think their loved one is saying to them.
Time for a real quick break. Make sure you like and subscribe. Liking the video will show it to more people on YouTube, and subscribing will make sure you get access to all my great content in the future. And now back to the video. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's really important, as you said, that ethics and that professionalism, knowing how to deliver a message, knowing discretion. When do you deliver a message? And people that are lay people don't really maybe understand that. And the other aspect about mediumship is the value that you're getting from the reading.
Yeah.
that opportunity to connect, and what is that worth?
Yeah. And I think too, kind of going back to the charging in a way as well, but this, there are psychics and mediums out there that if they're not training, they just may give you things. But when you train, you're learning the philosophy. You're really sitting with spirit. You're sitting with like, what is it you want to say to me? What is it you want me to know about the other side? What is it I need to be sharing with others? Like there's such a deeper connection, I believe, when we look at this as a craft, when we really allow ourselves to explore it on a much deeper level.
Yeah, I completely agree, and I think in a way, when we use these words, craft and profession, I believe it's also a mission. I believe
Yes.
every
Oh,
medium that I've talked to talks about serving spirit. I'm
yes.
here in service. So, and that's why I think some people get this idea that it should be free because it's in service, but there has to be this exchange.
Absolutely. Yes. There has to be the exchange. There's a lot of service based careers and industries, and money is needed as that exchange to help them expand the word, to help them get out, to help them flourish, and to help as many people as possible.
So, what do you think are what are some of the most common misperceptions about mediumship? About what is it like to be a medium?
I think some of the most common things is that I'm always reading people's minds and that I know every thought they have,
Mm,
which is not true. Can we pick up on impressions? Can we pick up on certain thoughts or feelings? Of course we can, but it's not like we're purposefully tuning in to someone all the time. So I think
hmm
that is one misperception. Also, that will know every little detail. What are the last four of my father's social security number? If you're real, you'll know that. And it's like, well, it doesn't exactly work that way.
hmm
What are the lottery numbers? No, it doesn't work that way either.
hmm
So
Yeah.
I think those are some of the misconceptions. And the other thing is it's really a conversation that we're having. It's a conversation we're having with the soul of that spirit and a conversation with the soul of the sitter as well.
So, what does it work like for you? What's the process like for you? Because I think again, we all have an impression in our minds, and I think some people think, okay, I'm going to go to this medium, and my loved one's going to come and sit next to them in the chair, and it's going to be like they're just going to have a conversation, and then they're going to just talk to me.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, right, that is kind of the idea of what some people think it's like, or they have an idea of what they want their loved one to say
Yes.
versus just like it comes through differently. And it may be something irrelevant or small. I mean, and someone will say, well, yeah, that's true, but I'm not sure why. I don't know. They're the ones telling me.
Yeah. Right.
It's like,
Right.
um, but for me, so when we said no tools, because you said, hey, I'm going to ask you about that. So
Right. Yes.
I'm going to be proactive and answer it.
Please.
So there are some people that use cards, either tarot cards or spirit cards, or use pendulums or crystal balls or crystals. These are tools that people use in order to help them with that connection. So I don't use any tools at all. So when I have a session, I literally just say to spirit, well, who wants to say hello? That's
Mhm.
really who wants to say hello? And I really talk to spirit as if I want to get to know them, as if I'm meeting them in a coffee bar and we're sitting down and having a coffee, and let me get to know you. Let me share this time, this space with you. And I think that approach makes a big difference in being able to feel spirit and being able to have them trust me, right?
Mhm.
The spirit has to trust the medium as well. And so we're able to get comfortable. I'm not that medium that talks the spirit of, well, what's your name? What did you do? Who are you? How did you die? Like, that'd be so rude. Can you imagine? Think about walking up to someone in the living, and you say, "Who are you? What's your name? What did you do? How did you hurt yourself?" Like, it's like, hey. So I really look at it as a conversation, and I just go with it. I really allow myself to let the spirit share what it is they want to share.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Hi there, I'm really excited to tell you about my latest ebook. It's 4 lessons that you can learn from the near-death experience without going through all the trouble of dying to learn them. I've been studying NDEs for several years now. I am completely convinced that not only are they 100% real, but that there's some very universal wisdom that we can get from the near-death experience. And I've distilled that down in this book into 4 short lessons. And I've also given you all the reasons why I believe that NDEs are absolutely real. So go to www.grieftogrowth.com/NDE lessons to pick it up for free. www.growth.com/NDE lessons. I hope you enjoy it. Thank you. That's a really important point. Again, I know a lot of mediums, and I know some of the training they get, and some of it's that name, rank, serial number thing.
Yeah.
It's like, and again, sometimes people in the living, there's like, okay, I want to have this. And one example, I know, like my daughter, I've had several readings, and my daughter doesn't typically talk about the way that she passed. And I've had some mediums get really frustrated because it's like, I'm not able to get that. I'm like, that's because she doesn't want to talk about it.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Exactly. And I think that but again, it's, the way I work with my students and with spirit, it's, we can't force it. Like, if you force it, it's unnatural. Right. And the thing is maybe there's other things your daughter wants to talk about instead. Maybe she wants to talk about things that made her laugh, or, the funny little jokes you would tell her to get her cracking up, or, maybe something you've done recently for her to honor her, which, I mean, I know you honor her every day. So, but, it's, let them share what they want versus this idea. So I tell my students, it's not a resume. Don't deliver to the client, to the recipient, as if it's a resume. This is a person. This is a person. And when you really deliver the information that you are getting with love and compassion and joy, and, one of the things is if I were to take on a mannerism that your daughter would do, or say a little something she would say, like, that is so much more evidential than no matter anything else I could give, I think mediums work so hard to prove that they have your loved one. So, if they give you all of that, and maybe all of it is true and accurate and correct, mentally, you may say, yes, they have my loved one. I want you to feel your loved one with me. And that, to me, is the difference, that when you feel them with me, and that they are with me, then we have a conversation with them. And I think that, to me, is more gratifying. But it's remarkable what they will give. So I had this lady come in, and her young daughter passed. I believe her daughter was 12 or 14, something like that, right? And it's 2 little things. I said, your daughter is giving you butterflies. She wants to let you know that butterflies are her sign for you. And she said, yes, I know. And I said, she shows me all these hearts, and I don't know why she's doing this, but I'm going to give it to you. And the lady says, I know exactly why. So at the end of the session, the lady shows me they created an organization, a nonprofit, on behalf of the daughter. The daughter had done drawings, and they used the drawings for this nonprofit. The drawing is of a butterfly, of all the hearts of the butterfly, and all the hearts make up the butterfly. So it was like, wow, like, that's pretty, like, that's pretty amazing. Like, and I wouldn't have like necessarily known. It's not like the daughter saying, "Oh yeah, she started a nonprofit for me, and this is my design."
Mm-hmm,
But that's
mm-hmm.
what I'm saying. Like it's in pieces, but the pieces to the puzzle are beautiful pieces.
Yes, I think there's a balance because people want to know you've made that connection. So that's why I think mediums dig so hard for the evidence. But especially in today's world where we got the internet and people are so skeptical, a lot of
Mhm.
times we'll talk ourselves out of a reading like that because we'll say, well, I've even had people like they'll go look up the obituary afterwards. It's like, okay, everything she told me was already there on the internet. So
Uh,
they just dismissed the whole thing. But something like the hearts and the butterfly, that's something that touches your heart.
yeah, exactly. And I think for me, even though it's a balance, so a session is a balance between evidence,
Hmm.
um, well, it's all evidence really, but I call it hard facts, soft facts, and a message. So
Yeah, I like that.
hard facts are the Google. Hard facts, name, maybe how they passed, how old, a birth date, anything like that. So objectively, it's indisputable, right? So those are hard facts. Soft facts, personality traits, idiosyncrasies, things, a perspective, a subjective take, like what is your personality? Her take on a memory with you would be different than somebody else's take on that same memory, right? So that perception is also. And then when we come to quote unquote the message, I do believe usually there's a message. I really do.
Hmm.
Because, I say it's like when you phone someone, you usually have a reason to call someone.
Right.
What are you doing for dinner? Or, hey, I just want to say hi to you. Hey, I was thinking about, I know you got the trip coming up, or whatever. We have a
Mhm.
reason. So I believe spirit normally does. It doesn't have to be earth shattering. It could be just want to say hello or just wanted to let you know I'm around. But what I really like to say is, what would you like to say to them today? Is there anything you
Mhm.
want me to say? And I think that that's usually, that kind of conversational approach, I think is really what really helps everybody feel the connection. Or at least
Yeah.
I hope. I hope. I hope.
Yeah, I like that. I completely agree. I think it's got to be a balance.
Yeah.
We do need some evidence because if you go to a
Mhm.
medium, she just says your grandmother loves you. It's like,
Oh
okay.
yeah. Or I've got this lady with lovely energy and well, she gives me lots of hugs for you. It's like, okay, well, we need more than that. I agree. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So I was gonna ask you, when I know you help people, I think you help people connect with their own loved ones.
Yes.
So because I hear a lot of mediums say, well, you can learn to do this yourself. And a lot of people like me say, yeah, I don't know how to do that. What's your advice for someone who says, I don't feel anything from, I'm not getting a connection.
Yeah, there's a couple reasons for that. One is if the person is in such a state of grief, I think of it as a wet sponge, right? It's just going to sink in the water. The lighter the energy, so the higher the vibration, the easier it is to connect to your own loved one. So
Hmm.
when you're deep in grief, it's not that they're not around and it's not that they're not there, but your awareness simply isn't expanded at that point. And so the vibration is just too low for you to recognize how they would be around you. The second thing is when they do come around or around us or give us signs or symbols or it's so subtle sometimes. I mean, it's so subtle, Brian. It's like, looking out the corner of your eye and a squirrel or a bird catches your attention ever so slight and you turn your eye to look at it. Like there's something to that. But most people just go, oh, huh, and keep looking. They're not thinking more beyond that. Um, and so I think it's those sorts of things that, maybe kind of say, hey, I don't know if they're around. So obviously look at certain things. I definitely feel like if you think of that loved one, if you hear a song or there's something that you see and it makes you think of that loved one, I believe that loved one is already sent you what it is you were receiving. I believe they are the initiative, like they're the proactive one. And
Mm.
even though, so we reverse it sometimes, I think, but it really is them around. And I do believe that they're around. Little things, if the hair on your arms, raises, or the hair on the back of your neck, or you get a little shiver, sometimes you can feel their impression around you, which is really great. Dreams are also another very key way. Although I believe there's two types of dreams. I believe there's visitations, and then there's just the subconscious working through something.
Yes, I agree. And I think that's a really important point to make, because I've heard of people having disturbing dreams about their loved ones.
That's right.
And saying, oh, does that mean they're in trouble?
Right, exactly. And it's not, right? Or they're stuck. I'll tell you the one thing I can't stand. I'll tell you, if there's one thing if I wish I could change in the world, is the idea that your loved one is stuck somewhere and they need a medium's help to cross over. I think that's the most ridiculous concept ever. That doesn't even make sense. The soul is inherently intelligent. It definitely knows where to return home to. And so I think that is important to remember as well.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that. Because again, I know there's some mediums, whether they're misguided or unethical, they will tell people that, someone's stuck somewhere and I need to help them get out. And so you need to pay me, more money so I can help them move along.
Yeah, and it's it is unfortunate, right? And again, some people just naturally believe that. Like, I don't know how you could kind of provide that as a service, but the hardest part is I think the hardest part is if you are working with a client who is deep in grief. It's, because I can't, you just can't fix that grief. I can do my best and I could try to help alleviate it, and I can bring through that loved one, and maybe even for a few minutes they're feeling wonderful and better. But the grieving process is very, it's very challenging. I think it's difficult. There's no way. I really do feel bad, because it's like, as much as I could bring your daughter to you, or anyone's loved one, to them, as much as I could do that, what I can't do is bring them to you in the physical realm. That I can't do. And I can't get them to pick up the phone or text you, or, and that's just where we have to have that trust of that connection in the spirit world, without the physicality.
Yeah, that's a good point. Because we can't get that. I don't want to say relationship back, because we still have the relationship, but we can't get that physical connection back. That's
Right.
the thing that's missing. And I tell my clients, we are physical beings, so we do crave the physical. So there is going to be something that's missing. But on the other hand, as someone that works with people in grief, and I've studied it for the last several years, I also know that a medium reading can be as beneficial as a year's worth of therapy.
Yes. I love that you said that. So thank you, because there are a lot of clients that have said that to me. And that is what a beautiful thing to say to a medium, right? What a beautiful thing to say, like, or this really helped me. I mean, it is beautiful. But I love this. And I think what's wonderful is I know, I mean, I really, really know with all of my being that our soul absolutely does live on. And it's super exciting to kind of see when someone is around someone, or talking to them, or what they're doing. And I love too that they think about it, like they share their personalities with me, and then they share your personality or your loved ones. I mean, how fun that I get to meet all of your family in one fell swoop.
Yes.
Oh,
It can be a wonderful experience having having a reading with a medium like that. And I've talked to a lot of people that have talked to medium, and they're like, it's like I had a meeting, like you said, a meeting with all my loved ones, and they were there, and she was there, her personality, and they were saying the things. Because as much as we want to believe in our world that we live in, we're still very skeptical. We're still very materialistic. And a lot of people are just like, yeah, I want to believe it, but I just don't know. I'm not quite over that hump.
Yeah.
And that medium reading can be the proof, the personal experience that we need.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that that is very valid, that it can be that proof for someone, which is really great and reassuring for sure.
So I know you also, I think you coach people as well. How do you coach people?
I work I normally work with psychics or mediums that want to develop their own gifts. They want to
Mhm.
become stronger. So
Mhm.
I offer a one-on-one program. It's like 3 months long, and just kind of help them on that journey, and just teaching them a very strong foundation, and kind of giving them a lot of exercises to help them practice in a really safe place, right? Because it is difficult for a psychic or medium to find a really good group or development circle, or have an opportunity to read for someone when they're kind of still practicing. So I love doing that a lot. And then a lot of my clients, they'll do readings with me sometimes pretty frequently, but it's
Mhm.
really like, kind of what you said earlier, I could either pay the therapist or I could pay you, and it's much more fun with you.
Yeah.
So it's like, well, let's do it. I try not to, uh, I don't want to get in the way of helping others the best way that I can help them.
Mhm.
However I can be of service is really how I want to show up.
Great. I know one of the things you say is there is no goodbye.
There's
And
no
I know
goodbye.
we've touched on this, and I think I know what it means, but what does it mean to you?
It means that there is no goodbye, that your loved one really never dies. They just don't die. Their physical body perishes, the physical body dissolves, right? But the soul lives on. That soul and the veil, when we say heaven, uh, you know, we think of heaven above. And I think the reason we think of heaven above is because the vibration, right? Spirit is above, the vibration is high. I think
Mhm.
that's what gives us that beautiful concept. And I believe that spirit is right on the other side of the veil. So they're just right there in that other realm. So they are right by you. So there is no goodbye. If you practice talking to them, expanding the awareness. Let me explain that just in case for the listeners to kind of understand what that means. We
Sure.
all have our senses, our seeing, our hearing, our feeling, our knowing, and our tasting and smelling. And so a psychic or a medium, those senses are heightened, meaning they're stronger, right? We're more sensitive, just so sensitive, everything. And so the peripheral vision is really strong. The idea. So the more you can practice that, and everybody can, so the more you can strengthen your senses to make you more sensitive, the more you're going to pick up on your loved one and what they're giving you and what they're bringing to you. You'll feel them in the aura, or you'll notice that sign that maybe you wouldn't have noticed before.
Mhm. Yeah, I think it's really helpful. As you were talking about that, we were talking about heaven being above. I think about when this idea came about back in the day when people didn't understand the universe the way that we do, right? So anything that was outside of the earth was above. So it
Right.
makes sense. We think of heaven as above. We think of it as far away. Now, as we've got more of a scientific understanding, we talk about frequency and vibration, like you're talking about. And if you think about radio waves, like radio stations, they're all in the same place at the same time. It's just which one are we tuned into? And so if we can start to think of the spirit world as more of a different frequency,
That's right.
it's in the same location, but
Hmm.
it's a different frequency that we're not tuned into in our normal life. I think that analogy might help people understand that our loved ones didn't go like a long way away. They didn't go anywhere. Their bodies they're just not focused on their bodies anymore. They're not uh, you
Yeah,
know,
absolutely.
attached. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is simply that frequency that we are connecting to as well. Yes.
So as people are thinking about connecting to their own loved ones, it's a matter of, as you said, developing that sensitivity and tuning into these other frequencies, which is what mediums can do some naturally and some through a lot of training and a lot of work.
Yeah. Well, the theory or the belief is all mediumship is natural. That's the belief or theory. And then you can develop it further. So the idea supposedly is that you cannot make a medium. Um, and the point is I go, I don't know, who's to say? Like, who am I to say, that it can only be this way. I think that's so limiting to say it can only be this way. But yeah, I mean, to me, you know, finding that medium that is natural but has dedicated themselves, committed themselves, invested themselves into uh into being of service, into this practice, I think is very, very good. Now you're really going to get the cream of the crop. You're really going to get the vetted medium to provide the service. And one thing I wanted to say, kind of going back to the awareness as I was talking about, and you know, when people go through their daily lives, you're thinking of the groceries, what you got to pick up at the store. Does the car need gas in it? Do you need to go to this appointment? In that state, right? We're in our ego mind. In that state, it's very difficult for people to connect to their loved ones, right? And you're just thinking of the next task to the next task. So that's why, like, if you right before bedtime, when you start to relax, right, the ego mind starts to lift and the subconscious starts to rise. That's when really you can connect to your loved one. So I recommend for anybody right before sleep, just try to think of your loved one, or right when you rise, right in the morning, try to think of your loved one. It may be a little easier for you to feel them or think about them. The other thing too, everybody out there, it's going to feel as if you're making it up. That's the most important thing I want you to know. It's going to feel that it's in your imagination. And the reason is because it is in your imagination. That's the side of the brain we use to connect to spirit. So that's simply what's happening. That means you're doing it right. Okay. So I think just trusting that more and more is really, really important to your own personal connection to connecting to your loved ones.
Yeah. And I want to second that because I've done just a tiny, tiny bit of mediumship training and at a couple exercises where it's like try to connect to this person. And I'm like, okay, I'm just going to make something up. And I did. And sometimes, I'm not a professional medium at all. So sometimes it was wrong, but a couple of times it was like really right. Like
Yeah.
I was surprised. And I'm like, well, I'm just making this up.
Yeah. And we're not making it up.
Yeah, I think there's I like this conversation we're having because there is some mediums say that everybody can do what I do, and I disagree with that. It'd be like Beethoven saying everybody can play, or Mozart saying everybody can play piano. Not
I
everybody,
love saying Michael Jordan.
yeah,
Everyone can dribble a basketball. Not everyone can be a Michael Jordan.
exactly. That's the analogy I was going for. So yeah, there's some people like that. That's like they're just naturally gifted, and I could practice this for the rest of my life, and I'm never going to get there. But I can start somewhere, and I can get better. And maybe we can't all be professional mediums, but we can learn to connect with our own loved ones.
Oh, 1,000%. Yes. And everybody can create and establish a spiritual practice. And, in doing so, not only is that going to bring more balance, more peace, more connection, it's going to help you make more decisions that are in alignment with your higher self because you'll be connected to your higher self. And you will have an opportunity to connect to your loved ones more easily and clearly if you practice. It's a practice.
Yeah. Well, you talked about a couple of things. You talked about that intention when we go to sleep at night, the intention when we wake up in the morning. What are some other things that we can do?
Well, I feel like, again, expanding that awareness. So, things that you could do to practice expanding the awareness is when you do wake up in the morning, you can have a thought of that loved one. Take a moment and think of what it looks like outside. What color is the sky today? Listen to what are you hearing? Are you hearing birds, dogs barking? Are you hearing children playing? Are you hearing cars, trash trucks? Tune into every sound that you can possibly pick up on. I am nosy, nosy, nosy when I go out to a restaurant. I will literally tune in to just feel the vibration of a couple next to me. How are they feeling? Are they happy? Are they connected? Just to practice feeling. We're so taught to shut our feelings down. So
Hmm.
when you can really practice, you are going to become more sensitive, but I think it's important in order to help that awareness really become stronger. Once that awareness is stronger, it's easier to connect to your loved ones. And there are no synchronicities. So if excuse me, coincidences.
Mhm.
There are no coincidences. So if you really let go of the idea of a coincidence, you will only see synchronicities and you will start to go, okay, well, wait a minute. There's a sign here. There's a meaning here. This is connected. And I think those things will really absolutely help us.
I like that, and I have to say that as someone, I'm an engineer by training. I'm a very rational, left brain kind of person, and we've been taught that everything is cause and effect. So there are no, so these things happen because this happened, and we're talked out of synchronicities. But the more that I've studied about it, and Jung was really big on synchronicities. It's like there
Mhm.
are synchronicities. There are things, and when some things happen, the timing of which are just like astronomically, the odds are against it, and we deny it. We say it was just luck. It was random
Yeah.
chance.
Yeah.
It will literally change your world when you start to believe in synchronicities.
Yes,
It will
absolutely.
it makes the world just a different place.
Yes, absolutely. I agree.
So let people know where they can reach out to you, how and what you offer.
So they can reach me on my website at colbyrebel.com and on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook at Colby Rebel Medium. That's the nice little handle that I
Yeah.
have. And what do I offer? Where I love offering the mediumship services. I also offer the psychic services as well, just to help people with direction and clarity in their lives. I teach, so I have the one-on-one program,
Hmm.
and I also offer classes that people can also join so they have a fun place to practice as well.
And your podcasts.
And my podcast, The Colby Rebel Show.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, yes.
Well, any last thoughts you'd like to give for anybody listening today?
I just know um I really applaud your listeners. I know how difficult it is to move through grief. That takes a lot of will and takes a lot of strength and it takes a lot of courage. I say be kind to yourself, be easy on yourself. You don't have to have a time limit, regardless of how long it's been. And some days are going to be easier than others. But just remember that your loved one literally is one thought away. That's as far as they've gone, is one thought away from you.
All right. That's awesome. Thanks, Colby, for being here today.
Oh, my pleasure, Brian. And thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed our talk today.
All right. Have a good afternoon.
Thank you.
Hey there. If you like this episode, come on over and talk about it. Let me know what you liked. If you didn't like this episode, come on over and talk about it. Let me know what you didn't like. Go to grieftogrowth.com/community and look for Talk About the Podcast. I'll see you there.